Now I'd like you to hear from one of our Warrior graduates, a 15-year Navy veteran, Petty Officer First Class, Joe Moreno. Joe, come on up.
Eagle, side. He's got to be right first. Thank you, Carl. So as Carl said, my name is Joe Moreno, and this is my service dog, Eagle. First and foremost, I just want to really say thank you for being here tonight. Your support for the K9's mission, it's so important, and it really is appreciated. You are, without question, saving veterans' lives. I'm standing here tonight because of the generosity of all of you, the donors, the volunteers, and the staff. They continue to go above and beyond to help veterans like myself. Veterans you may never meet, but because of your support, we're on the path to living our best lives again with hope and dignity. Now tonight, I'm going to share some of my story with you, and many of the details I'm going to share, I've never shared outside of my doctor's office before. But my hope is that by sharing this with you, it'll shed some light on just how different my life is now because Eagle's by my side. See, less than a year ago, I was living a very different life. I was constantly irritated. I was quick to anger. I didn't smile. I lost my sense of humor. I never laughed. Hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, avoidance, isolation, fear. These ruled my life every single day. The worst part, though, was my inability to feel anything happy. I couldn't feel happy about anything. The kind of happiness a parent should feel watching their child succeed at something. Sure, I was proud, but I was still numb. I did things like Ironman triathlons. I climbed several mountains. I did things that were physically demanding, but I never got any satisfaction from it. I was still numb. Everything I did was a series of checklists. I trained for the races, check that off. I summited the mountain, check that off. I was truly incapable of feeling happiness. I was in a place emotionally that was consumed with negative thoughts and feelings. I couldn't even fall asleep most nights. The majority of mornings would start off completely exhausted from the little sleep that I did get. And I was so overwhelmed with anxiety and fear because I didn't know how I was going to face another day. Many times I would just end up in the bathroom floor in tears and letting the shower run just so nobody would hear me. My hands would be ice cold. My mouth would get so dry I would literally choke. These were the things that I was dealing with every day. It was like somebody was standing on my chest all the time. I had that kind of pressure on my chest. It even turned into chest pains at one point. Thankfully, it was just a byproduct of anxiety and not a heart issue. Truth be told, many mornings, I didn't go to work. I called in sick because I just simply couldn't do it. I would end up at the beach, somewhere that was peaceful that I could just sit, because I couldn't go home. Going home meant somebody would catch on to the secret and ask what was going on. And I truly didn't even know what was going on at that point. My doctor would later tell me, Joe, you mastered the art of suffering in silence, and that's not a compliment for you. But it wasn't always this way. As some of you know, I was born and raised in Southern California. I was into anything and everything outdoors. I excelled at sports. I loved to surf. I was happy-go-lucky. I was thriving. I was driven. I was determined. I wanted to excel at everything that I did. And I wanted to make a difference somehow. And like many, after 9/11 happened, I knew what my calling was. And I enlisted in the Navy in December of 2001. During my time in the Navy, both active and reserve, I was very fortunate and I got to do a lot of things. I got to meet a lot of great people and be part of a lot of really good units. By job, I was a Master at Arms, for any Navy people out here. Ooh yeah, I was Master at Arms, which is a military police. I was also a firearms instructor, and I was an anti-terrorism training supervisor. I also hold a distinction that I'm proud of, and I've never stepped foot on a naval ship, and I've never been out to sea. That wasn't my Navy. That was a different Navy. I wish they had a medal for it, but unfortunately they don't. But in February 2003, I deployed to Kuwait, and about a month later, into Iraq during the invasion. Our job at that time was to secure bridge crossing sites for the Marines so they could head north and take Baghdad. We also did a lot of convoy security throughout Iraq during that time. And I call it a privilege to enter some of these small towns that most would never have heard of and to interact with the local people. Something as simple as sitting down and having tea in the dirt with somebody that you couldn't verbally communicate. These are experiences that I'll never forget. But at the end of the day, war was still war. And I wouldn't realize for several years later just how much of that had taken from me. In 2016, about a year after I left the Navy, I was still struggling to fit into a civilian world that I didn't feel like I understood, and they didn't understand me either. I was at a breaking point. I was literally forcing myself to leave the house to keep that secret safe. Places like malls, restaurants, any crowded place, parking lots in particular. I was always on high alert. I was always looking over my shoulder. Internally, I was preparing for a fight. Multiply this by years and years, it was simply exhausting. I was tired. I was tired and I didn't know how to do it anymore. My symptoms got to a point where I had to leave my career. I had to make a choice. Career or my health? I chose my health. I needed to ask for help. For me, the single hardest thing I had to do was ask for that help. I would rather have gone back to war than feel the weakness and the shame I felt walking into the VA for the first time. That was a tough day. But finally, the pieces of the puzzle of everything I'd been dealing with, they all came to light, and I had a diagnosis now of PTSD. It was starting to make sense. Now, the journey for me was a series of twists and turns with the VA, which is sometimes hard to navigate. Like most, right, but like most, I started with medication, like many do. This picture here, this was one mail delivery of medication that the VA sent me. That's a lot of pills. That was one delivery. Now, for many, that was the solution that worked for them. For many, that was a solution that they settled on because they didn't know what else to do. For me, what this meant, this was just more numbness. This was nausea, this was headaches. This was forgetting small details about things going on in my life. For example, I got to work one day and I had about an hour commute at that point. I couldn't remember how I got to work that day. That was scary. I knew medication wasn't where I wanted to land. That was merely a Band-Aid for me. And I start using this analogy. It's like taking credit card debt from one card and transferring it to another and convincing yourself that debt's been paid. I was exchanging one set of symptoms for another set of symptoms, but my debt was still there. So I began researching. I got on the internet and I came across K9's YouTube channel. I could probably recite most of those videos back to you today. I watched them over and over and over again. I got on their social media, I got on their website, and I was so intrigued at how dogs could do what they do for us. So I applied. Sit. Good boy. He's a handsome boy, isn't he? Fix his tux. So I applied and I was accepted. And then wouldn't you know it, COVID hit. Good old COVID. COVID hit, and that gave me a class date of January 2024. We're not even there yet. But here's the thing I didn't know going into this. Sit. Stay. K9s didn't wait for me to get on campus in January 2024 to begin engaging me in the process. They started right away. And I can't thank my Warrior Operations contact, Kevin, enough for the constant communication he had with me during my time of need. It was every month. Sometimes it was information. Sometimes it would be a very simple message. Hey, brother, thinking about you. What do you need? I'm here for you. And that meant the world at that time. But the world began to open up. And it was late June, early July of last year, I received a call from Kevin. Ironically enough, I was homesick with COVID. Go figure. And it was a very simple call. He said, hey, brother, August 1st, we have a class date. Can you make it? And that's really where my journey began. When I arrived on campus, it was so much more than any of those videos and any of that social media could have ever shown me. It was so much more than that. That campus was beautiful. For me, campus was very therapeutic and it was very healing for me. It allowed me the space to do what I needed to do to be successful with him, but also to be successful for myself. K9s didn't just give us a beautiful campus, they also gave me my Warrior class. It was my new unit. The bond that we have through these shared experiences with each other, it's hard to describe, but it was like we had known each other for years. And I truly mean this, I haven't laughed so hard in the previous decade as I did in that 3 weeks with these guys. And we still, to this day, through group chats, those laughs continue. They're my new brothers. Well, what K9s really gave me most of all is they gave me Eagle. This guy is amazing. This was about a week into it. And on Dog Day is the day after we arrive on campus, and that's when we first meet our battle buddies. From the moment I met Eagle, everything changed for me. He has literally never left my side since then. To this day, when I take a shower, he sits outside of the shower door, and he waits for me. No lie. Last night I didn't feel good before I went to bed. I felt like I was getting a cold. The minute I turned the lights out last night, he jumped on my bed, and he's not allowed on the bed. So he jumped on my bed and he put his head on my chest. These dogs are amazing. They're amazing. So that was Dog Day. When his trainer, Justin, had handed me that leash, everything changed. I knew he was what I had been looking for. I knew medication wasn't it, and he was. He was a new piece of my puzzle. Now, the first few days are spent bonding with our dogs. We laughed, we played, we bonded in another way. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. This cute, innocent guy decided to take my running shoes. And he proceeded to eat the heel, about half of the heel, off of the back of my shoe. So for the next 3 weeks, I was walking around Jacksonville, you name it, with half a heel on my shoes, since that was my only shoes. So we had a heart-to-heart that night, and we've never had a problem since. So no more trust issues. But in all seriousness, for me, besides the shoe, I noticed the impact Eagle had on me instantly. I was walking through places like Target, the mall, IKEA, restaurants, and parking lots. I never focused on anything other than what Eagle was doing by my side. I remember getting back to the bus and telling one of my classmates, if a crime was committed, I'd be a terrible witness. Because I truly never remembered anybody or anything that was going on in any of these places that we were. I only remember watching him and what he was doing. For the first time in over a decade, I was able to walk through these places and not look over my shoulder and not be ready for a fight. That's what Eagle did to me. It was like that person that was standing on my chest had finally moved on, and I could breathe again. I could finally breathe again. A few of us started using this phrase in our class, and it was very simple, and I think it sums up the relationship that we have. And it's, we heal through healing. And what that really means is, by having Eagle healing by my side everywhere we go, I was able to begin healing. Now, unfortunately, K9s wouldn't let me live there forever. And I had to go home. I tried. They said no. But what does life look like now with K9, with Eagle by my side? It is complete, unconditional love from him. Complete, unconditional love. He gives me more than I give him, that's for sure. It's more face licks than I can explain. And he's a big dog. They're real face licks. Constant cuddling. He's always wanting to touch me or be near me. It doesn't matter what we're doing. And Eagle's always on alert, so I don't have to be on alert. And that's really, truly allowed me to go back into the world and re-engage, but be present this time, instead of being numb and on alert. And he's done that for me. So one of the funniest challenges that I have with Eagle is I like to work out. When I do push-ups, here you go. I think the video probably tells the story better than I will. But essentially what he does is, when I go to do a push-up, he comes over and he licks my head. It's not because I'm salty. But oftentimes he'll put his head on my back and try to prevent me from doing it. Remarkable, right? But what Eagle's really doing is he's keying in on my body language and my breathing. In the same way that he interrupts negative emotions for me, that's what he's doing when I'm doing push-ups. He thinks I'm having a moment because I'm breathing hard. These dogs truly are remarkable. But the best thing about Eagle is he doesn't judge me. He doesn't judge me for having a bad day or a tough moment. He really just wants to be by my side. That's all he wants. He just wants to be by my side. He doesn't care if I'm having the best day in the world or the worst day in the world. His tail still wags just the same. And if you've seen his tail, you understand. Now, for me, PTSD is always going to be part of my life, and it'll always be part of my story. But I'm confident with Eagle by my side, the highs and the lows of those moments are much more balanced now. And when I do have those tough moments, it's a lot easier to handle. A year ago, I wouldn't be on this stage speaking to you. But it's with the help of everybody who helped bring Eagle and I together that I am here. Yes, my anxiety has been through the roof all day long. Truth be told, it's been like that for the last several weeks. But I'm here. A year ago, I would have used every avoidance tactic that I knew to not be here, to isolate myself. But I am here. I accepted the challenge because I want to show other veterans, with the right tools, there is hope that they can get back to living their best lives the way they want, on their terms. That's my why. So in closing, I really just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Your support means the world, and you really are changing lives. To the whole K9s For Warriors staff and volunteers, to those that worked with me on campus, to those that work every single day behind the scenes and only meet the Warriors in pictures, and to those I've met and had the privilege to work with since, thank you so very much for what you do. Thank you for fighting that good fight for us. It's because of you that I have my new best friend, Eagle, here. Thank you very much. Stand up, bro. Stand up, bro.